Well, good afternoon. I'm Captain Brian Penoyer. I'm the Federal On-Scene Coordinator for the Texas City-wide response. I'm also the Captain of the Port and Sector Commander here in Houston, Galveston. I'll give you a brief update on the response. Today, we have a number of accomplishments to report. First and foremost is that our reconnaissance this morning and transit testing have revealed that the waters are sufficiently cleared of oil due to our response efforts and the weather to allow us to allow limited access of shipping to the vital channels here on the Houston Ship Channel and the Intracoastal Waterway. We have authorized that, and at this time, commerce is moving. We will continue to monitor those transits to assure that there is no danger of oiling the vessels that are making the transit, and we will monitor to assure that the transits of the vessels themselves do not cause any environmental harm while we are responding. In addition to this, we have completed yesterday the shoreline assessment throughout the Galveston Bay, and we continue today to reassess those impacted shorelines and areas where floating oil is still present. Oil spill removal operations are ongoing both inside the bay and offshore. However, the majority of the removal today has been in shoreline impact areas. We have laid out an extremely aggressive operational plan which went into effect at 6 o'clock this morning, including extended reconnaissance and oil removal operations, alongside wildlife surveillance, protection, identification, and for those birds and other wildlife that are impacted by oil, transport to our wildlife rehabilitation centers, having gone through our triage areas. At present, the number of reported wildlife that have been impacted by the oil floating, predominantly by floating oil, remains relatively low. However, we are receiving an enormously, a much larger volume of calls reporting suspected wildlife, and our wildlife response teams are verifying, and over time, particularly in the abundant, rich wildlife habitat here in the Galveston Bay, they are catching that impacted wildlife, assessing it, and then transporting it. We expect that the numbers of wildlife in our rehabilitation centers will grow over time, but we're quite pleased with the enormous show of support from the community, who are daily providing us with their sightings, the locations, and allowing us to send our experts out to make assessments quickly. The response itself is robust. We have a tremendous team of over 500 field responders, the world's best responders collectively, and another 250 in the command post, managing their operations and keeping those responders in the fight. The response is progressing quite well. However, this is a very significant oil spill, and we remain in intense response operations. We expect that those operations will continue. And particularly, we are paying attention now to the trajectory of the offshore oil. As I mentioned in previous briefings, a small amount, or an amount of some percentage of the oil that was released did escape during the weather that blew early on in the response out to sea. That oil offshore continues to be moved with the environment to the southwest. And as we look at the approaching change in weather over the next 24 hours, we are using this operational period, this 24-hour period, as our day of opportunity to recover as much oil out of the environment as we can before weather changes, potentially inhibiting our ability to remove oil directly from the environment. We are preparing, and we have enlarged our response, included new members of the Unified Command down the coast, and we are actively engaged there as well, placing protective resources in the water, as well as staging our reconnaissance and planning our early initial response if the oil should come ashore. We will continue to monitor it constantly with overflights. And as I mentioned, we have a vessel in that offshore area of oil skimming at present. Again, this is a very aggressive operational plan for the day, but one which we must execute in view of the pending change in weather. We will answer questions later, but I will yield at this time to my state on-scene coordinator colleague, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Arnhart, A-R-N-H-A-R-T, with the Texas General Land Office Oil Spill Prevention and Response Division. I am the state on-scene coordinator for this event. Captain touched about wildlife. I just want to give you a little more specific on what's going on with wildlife. We are actively involved in wildlife recovery. We have a number of personnel out in the field actively looking for and recovering wildlife. These are teams of experts with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Service. In conjunction with that, we have a number of locations. We have a triage center, which is basically the first contact to the shoreline when these birds are being taken on the Texas City Dike. And from there, they're moved to a location in Baytown, where the actual rehabilitation center and husbandry trailer is set up. At present, there were 8 birds in the recovery center in Baytown. I understand there's 10 additional birds and somewhere within the process. This is going to continue throughout this event. We know that we have additional wildlife that's oiled. The spotters have identified them, and they're just basically, it's going to be a continuing process to recover them throughout the event. We have at this time 10 birds that have been determined to be dead at this point. That's all I have.
Good afternoon. I'm David Dewhurst, Lieutenant Governor, and I'm also former Commissioner of the General Land Office, and I'm pleased to be here, Captain, with your team, Mayor, Judge, and Commissioner Patterson. I want to come down here today with Commissioner Patterson because of this, A, the size of the spill, but B, what I've been hearing for days is the success story of coordination. The federal response led by the captain and the Coast Guard, the state with the GLO, the county, the Galveston County, working together that in Houston and in Austin, I was hearing, but for the oil, this is almost a model exercise. As a matter of fact, in talking with the captain just a few minutes ago, the exact exercise that occurred on the incident which occurred on Monday, the incident which occurred on Saturday afternoon, you had an exercise plan to practice that same accident for later this year, and because of this effort, you're able to cancel that. But on behalf of the state of Texas, I really appreciate everything which the Coast Guard is doing. I appreciate what the county, what the city is doing, and I appreciate what our fine leadership team over at the General Land Office is doing. Thank you for all your hard work and all of the coordination.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Patterson, Commissioner of the General Land Office, and as I suspect, hopefully most of you know by now, the General Land Office Oil Spill Division is the state entity responsible for responding to oil spills and coastal events such as this. That's an effort, or actually a program that started in 1991 when the legislature passed the Oil Spill Prevention Response Act, and we've been doing this ever since. And we are doing this in concert with our partners, the Coast Guard and the local folks here in Galveston County, City of Galveston. And I think I want to echo Governor Dewhurst, who I believe is actually the acting governor today, because the governor is absent out of state, so this man is in charge. If anything goes south, I want you to talk to him about it. So,
it's your program.
All right, well, see, we don't have any of this going on, but again, another classic operation coordination effort by several different agencies is going to come out with a pretty good result. Just a little background, the General Land Office Oil Spill Division has about 55 full-time employees, and they're located at 5 different locations, pre-positioned along the Texas Gulf Coast, Nederland over there in the Beaumont, Port Arthur area, LaPorte, not far from here, Fort Lavaca, a little farther down coast, Corpus Christi, and Brownsville. We train to do what is happening today. We train with the Coast Guard. We have a tremendous cooperative relationship with industry. As a matter of fact, the event, as you know, occurred on about 12:35 Saturday. I had a call from Kirby about an hour and a half after that at my home, actually on my cell phone, saying this is what's happened, this is what we're doing. And also, we've done a lot of praise about the government agencies here, but the responsible party, and that's a term of art. We're not talking about blame or culpability, but we believe we maintain the responsible party is the source from which the commodity originated, whether they're at fault or not. But the responsible party, Kirby Inland Marine, has been on this like a duck on a June bug. They're paying for it. The state of Texas will not be out any revenue. It's the financial responsibility of the RP, and they're living up to their obligation. It's been 72 hours. We now have the ship channel open, at least to priority traffic. That's a very positive step, 72 hours after the original incident. That's very important for the economy in Southeast Texas, and the entire nation. That's real good news. The Bolivar Ferry is operational at least from 7 to 7. I hope that's going to be 24/7 in the not too distant future. As a matter of fact, there's a little anecdote, as I understand it, there was a lady in labor on Bolivar, was unable to cross because the ferry was not in operation. So I think there was a baby born as a result of this in a place that was not intended to be born, and I've suggested that they name the baby Kirby. I'm not sure Kirby is on board with that, but we are now looking at what we're going to be doing next. As you heard from the captain, it appears that the oil is out the jetties. It is moving down coast with the southwesterly direction, following the currents, and the possibility that it makes landfall further down the course has already caused us to redeploy GLO assets to the southwest. We'll be putting people on Matagorda Island in the very near future, equipment, personnel, and anticipating landfall on Matagorda or further south. So we're moving already. We're decreasing the number of personnel on site here and moving them down coast to prepare for whatever happens along the coast. That would probably come ashore in the form of tar balls. If you grew up here like I did and you started going to Galveston and Texas beaches when you were a kid, it was a ritual that your mom brought along baby oil to clean your feet before you got back in the car to go home. That went away because of all the efforts of the oil spill division and industry. But now occasionally we have these incidents, so if it comes ashore, it will probably be in the form of tar balls, which is a mechanical cleaning evolution. It's just, labor disguised with a rake and a plastic garbage bag. But anyway, I want to emphasize the dramatic and very effective cooperation between our partners, the Coast Guard, the Texas General Land Office, and our industry involvement here. We're not here to assess blame, or we're not here to attribute blame, but we're here to make it right, clean it up, and I think that's well underway. This could actually be a really good case study in how within 72 hours so much progress has been made. Don't put it as a pretty significant oil spill. These aren't the biggest oil spills we've had. We've had much bigger oil spills in Texas. Most of those were 20 years ago, but it's a significant one, and I think the outcome is something we all can be proud of. Now we need to learn what lessons need to be learned to avoid these incidents in the future, and we at the land office are going to move down coast to start preparing for whatever happens next.
I'm Galveston County Judge Mark Henry, and I'll just pick up where the commissioner left off and talk briefly. The reason that, in my opinion, this is working so well is because of the constant training we do with our partners here that are with me up here. In fact, as recently as 5 weeks ago, Captain Benoyer and his staff and I met to discuss oil spill scenarios and oil spill terminology and response plans. So I thought that was kind of odd, actually, but regardless, it was great because my education started 5 weeks ago and not Saturday afternoon when we had an incident. And then I'll just follow with the last thing, and that is that when the oil leaves here, it's not over for us. We just discussed in Unified Command meeting a few minutes ago. It's now up to us, for me to contact my counterpart in Matagorda and Nueces County to let them know what we learned while we were activated here, and to help them start their recovery process before it actually gets to them. So we're going to take what we've learned here, shift it down south, and help our counties to the south be prepared for this. And with that, I believe I'll turn it over to Mayor Rosen of Galveston.
Louis Rosen, Mayor of Galveston. I've asked Dr. Craig Brown, our chairman of our Parks Board, to come up and give you a report on the condition of our beaches. But I can't tell you how pleased the city of Galveston is with the response from the Coast Guard and the GLO being proactive. I think we've really saved a tremendous amount of our assets, and I want to thank them. I can't thank them enough. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Craig Brown, Chairman of the Galveston Park Board of Trustees. Park Board of Trustees is involved and helps manage the beaches in Galveston. We also are involved with the management of tourism in the city of Galveston. Galveston brings approximately 6 million tourists a year down to Galveston from all areas of the United States. Want to give you an update on how this is affecting tourism. We have our nature parks on the East End, Nature Park. On that portion of the park that is up against the ship channel, we have taken oil on that particular shore. And Seawolf Park, which is on Pelican Island, has been closed because of the impact that we have received in that park. The beaches in Galveston are open. We've had minimal concerns there in those beaches, and because of that, we are open for business in Galveston with tourism. We have minimal impact, as I mentioned, that is being managed as we speak. And I wanted to take this opportunity from the tourism industry to thank the emergency response team and the remediation team for the job that they have done. It has been above and beyond the call of duty. Thank you.
Mr. Arnhart, and I will take your questions.
Can someone talk about what makes the area where the spill occurred so difficult to navigate? Can you give us some perspective on that?
So I think you're asking about the general characteristics of the waterway.
Yeah.
The Houston Ship Channel is a portion of this waterway. It's what you would recognize running from south to north up to Houston. The Houston Ship Channel is a very long, very narrow, deep draft waterway. It's dredged to a depth of 45 feet to allow freighters and other commercial vessels to transit up there. As a result of that, its narrowness, its length, and some of the turns that it has, it can be navigationally complex, aided by the fact that it is crossed by yet another, actually two other very busy waterways, intracoastal waterway, predominantly used by tugs and barges, although recreational boaters do as well, and by the Texas City Channel, Port of Texas City, quite a busy port unto itself. The Port of Galveston Channel opens off of the approach right outside the jetties, obviously, on the Houston Ship Channel as well. So as a result of this, you have 4 very busy waterways that are conjoined, as I said, joining a narrow, long transit waterway. You add to that the environmental factors, the hydrodynamics, and the wind, fog, visibility. It can be navigationally complex.
Mr. Arnhart, I know you mentioned it's still early, you're still trying to find wildlife that's been affected, but can you give us a sense as to what the long-term, I know it's early, but the long-term impacts on wildlife, on the environment might be from this?
It's going to be ongoing. I mean, we're continuing to assess that daily. As I said early on, days ago, we're going to be here. We were here at the beginning. We'll be here till the end, until the last boom and absorbent pads were moved, until the last bird has been recovered. So our friends with Fish and Wildlife and Parks and Wildlife will be out there assessing this situation, and I'm going to be looking towards their expertise and telling us, when we're done. And you're going to have various stages of oil wildlife. I mean, I know that we saw that one duck that was oil. It was extremely unfortunate. It's a real visual that we hate seeing. But there are other birds with just basically spots of oil on their plumes. So there's been varying degrees of this. So we're going to continue to assess that throughout this whole process.
Captain, how much of the oil has actually drifted out of Galveston Bay and how much has been captured?
That's a question that actually occupies a good deal of our reconnaissance time at present. We can geographically describe the extent of the spread of that small, I should say small, less than full amount that was in that cargo tank that ruptured. Whatever proportion went out, we can see how much area that's covering at sea. However, it's of varying thicknesses, and it's not, as you would imagine, like a homogeneous blob or slick. There's a dense area where our skimmer is, actually, and there are many other areas that are light, and as the weather is beginning to stand up, it will change shape and break into windrows of oil. That makes that sort of estimation very difficult, and really operationally, I focus on what I can recover. So I'm much more interested in that question, and our reconnaissance flights and our scientific support coordinator are intensely focused on that question for two reasons. First, because it allows me to remove it for the environment. I have to use this window of opportunity I have before the weather comes to get that out of the environment. That's the best resolution, to have the oil out of the water. Secondarily, it helps us prepare and size our prediction for where the oil will come ashore and what it will look like when it does it. We're focused on that right now.
How much have you gathered?
So we have recovered a tremendous volume of both relatively pure oil and of oily water mix. And this mix of oil and water, even after decanting, makes recovery percentages of the original spilled amount very difficult to be meaningful. So we've recovered a large volume. Some percent of that volume is an oily water mix. And so we're proceeding with the presumption that it's better to calculate or to estimate what remains in the environment from what you see than what you've recovered.
Can
Can you tell us how long it's going to take to clean up everything and then remove it?
This is it's important to remember, this is an extremely serious spill. This was a very large volume of oil, over 4,000 barrels of heavy fuel oil. And while we have done a strong job of removing much of that oil where we can recover it, much of that oil still remains in the environment, and it is very difficult to really give you an assessment of that. However, I think you can reasonably expect very intense response operations like you're seeing now, with the size and weight of the response that you're seeing from really a national arsenal of response capabilities for several more days. And as Mr. Arnhart suggests, the response will transition gradually to a response, as the Commissioner mentioned, to tar balls, to floating oil, in smaller patches or amounts, and it will definitely include response to reported wildlife that may have been oiled. Sometimes the effects of that oil take time to manifest. It doesn't just happen instantly. The wildlife that we're seeing now that has been impacted is largely that which landed in heavy oil. The other effects of oil will manifest over time, and that recovery will go on for weeks.
Captain, can you talk a little bit more about how long it's going to take to get commerce and traffic in the ship channel back on schedule?
Sure. Actually, I can speak to that relatively well, because on the Houston Ship Channel, in the Galveston Bay, in Texas City, in Galveston, we are no strangers to port closures, primarily due to fog. It is a seasonal event. The pilots will not, and prudent navigation dictates that you not navigate in these constricted waters when there's low visibility. Multiple day fog closures are not unknown here. We have found that when you have a closure in the 3 to 4 day range, it takes about 3 days under normal circumstances for traffic to equalize out. In this case, Mr. Arnhart and I felt that in view of the ongoing response operations and our need to see oil, that we had to impose restrictions, including slow bell speeds in the vicinity of response operations in the safety zone, meaning that this is not business as usual by any means on the Houston Ship Channel. That will further slow the equalizing of vessels waiting to come in and go out. However, I can tell you that I've worked now for the better part of a year with the industry here on the Galveston Bay in these ports, and they are extraordinarily efficient, and they are working very hard to return everything to its normal state.
Captain, you talked a lot about the complexity and challenges of navigating the ship channel. What's being done to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Well, I'd say a number of things have already been done. The Houston Houston area has a vessel traffic service. It's one of the few areas in the nation that has a mandatory vessel traffic service. We have some of, well, if not the best, sensors and navigational beacons possible in the world here. And beyond that, there are several investigations, not least of which is the Coast Guard's investigation, joined by the National Transportation Safety Board, into the causes as a safety investigation. That will play its way forward and join the body of knowledge that we have accumulated in lessons learned in other investigations that go back decades. So this is a very heavily monitored and managed waterway. We anticipate that we will learn from this incident quite a bit as the investigation runs its normal course, and as we consider this in context of those other measures that I just described. Sorry, Abby, you had a question?
Yes, I did. I'm a visual person, and wondered if you could illustrate on the map where the original spill
Sure.
was, and Mr. Patterson was saying that the oil is moving out of the jetties and to the southwest, where the oil is moving now, the pattern that you see. And also, I wondered, the weather is warming up later this week, and then we may get into the 80s. Will the warming of the water and the temperatures impact the way that the oil is dissipating or moving?
Right. So a couple of questions there I'll hit, and then I'll just kind of show you where things happen and how the oil moves. So with regard to the question of the weather warming, warming weather will not particularly affect this product, as we know a good deal about this product. And at this point, it is weathering, which is a normal process involving a little bit of evaporation, mixing with water, and it changes its characteristic. It becomes much less, it emulsifies, it becomes much less subject to changes. So the temperature will not change the product significantly. Much more important is the weathering and the emulsification with salt water. That's already changing the product. We've seen that since the spill started. With regard to the environment, this is not a significant enough change to produce a change in the trajectory of the oil or the biology of the environment in which the oil is moving. So it's certainly something that over the course of time, weeks or months, you would pay attention to, but in the course of days, it does not make a significant difference. With regard to the map, I just make the point that the accident happened on Saturday, about noon, and the weather turned and blew from the north, such that the oil left the jetties pretty much the next day. So I'll point to and show you the trajectories that we had.
Thank you.
This is the Texas City Y. This is where the accident occurred. Immediately after that, we were at a slack tide, which means that there were not many currents and the wind was light. So the oil spread more or less uniformly here. As the wind came around from the north, it blew the oil this way, and the natural ebb current swept some of it out to sea, where the north wind again took it to the north and then to the west as it backed to the west. Other oil is where we in fact have seen the impacts that we've described along the shorelines. So from the accident site, Pelican Island, Little Pelican Island, around Seawolf Park, we discussed, into the Galveston Channel, all along past the seawall, and then out the jetty walls. And we've seen that oil being pushed by the wind, and we've had a steady wind keeping it there into the shorelines this way. You can see where, as the Galveston Bolivar ferry is affected there were some impact up on Bolivar side as well as that oil moved this way.